name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. The older I get, the more sympathy I tend to have for the Pharisees and the scribes. They were just doing their job. They look at the disciples. The disciples aren't washing their hands before they eat. Now the scribes and the Pharisees, part of their job is to make sure that the people follow the rules, to follow the laws. And to be quite honest, they're not wrong. The disciples should have washed their hands. You ever seen the markets in the Middle East? You wash your hands. You wash the food. That makes sense. The difference is, though, that in enforcing the laws, the Pharisees were making it a litmus test for their worth as human beings, rather than safeguarding their safety and health. The Pharisees weren't the police or the judges of someone's character. They were supposed to enforce those rules as a way of protecting the people and keeping them safe from harm. That was their job. When Jesus points out what they were actually doing, a different lesson emerges. It asks the question, what is really clean? What is defilement? And how does that play out in our lives? He wasn't so upset with the disciples not washing their hands or following the scrupulous laws. He was more interested that the Pharisees were the ones who were in error because they were being judgmental. They were being mean. That was the issue. The first lesson from the Song of Solomon. It is a beautiful book. And it's one of the books that is really not seen very often. It's only 8 chapters long. It's really very short compared to the other books of the Bible. And one of the strange things about this book is not anywhere in those 8 chapters does the word God appear. It seems to be a totally secular book. So why is it in the Bible? I don't know. But I'm glad that it is. It is a beautiful celebration of love. Just for the sake of it. It's a story of love. The lover and the beloved, for 8 chapters, finding each other. The language of love, the beauty of love, the celebration of love, that's what the Song of Solomon is about. And as our presiding bishop says, it's not about love, it's not about God. So the reverse must be true also. If it is about love, it is about God. So there we have it. And then in the second lesson from James, James also gives us a very, I'm so relieved not to read Paul this week. Thank you. Paul's convoluted lessons. James, thank you, James. He's a much better writer. Much clearer. Every good gift comes from Paul. A beautiful exposition, again, of love, of manners, good manners, civil behavior. That's what religion is about. That's what it's supposed to be about. Making us better, not making us judgmental, not giving us litmus tests for who's in, who's out, who's good, who's bad. It's not to make others better or to judge others in their faultiness. To make us better. To make me better than I was yesterday. That's what religion, or as James would say, true religion is about. It's about us being and getting a beautiful, beautiful food. Since it's Labor Day weekend, I wanted to use this as an example of what the gospel was talking about. versus following the Spirit law. I've got to admit that I didn't know a whole lot about Labor Day. So I looked it up. Here's the story about Labor Day. Not surprisingly, it is a day that was set aside to honor labor, to honor unions, to recognize the importance of unions. It started actually in the mid to late 1800s, at a time when workers started to band together. In the precursor to what we know as unions today, they started to protest against the unsanitary and unsafe conditions of their work. They had to band together to make their voices heard, and they needed to make that voice loud so that those who were in charge would hear it. Sometimes those protests were peaceful. Sometimes they led to riots and were violent. But it got to a certain point that the then President, Grover Cleveland, in the late 1880s, designated September 5th, not because September 5th has any great significance, but his reasoning was, it's halfway between the 4th of July and Thanksgiving. Let's make it a holiday. Actually, it's not a bad idea. Why clump them all in 1 month when you can just spread out the good stuff? But that's why it was chosen there. It wasn't just designated to be the end of the summer kind of holiday. It was just randomly chosen. But it was a conciliatory gesture to the labor union and to the workers to say, yes, we see you. Yes, we value you. And here's, have a day. But it grew in importance. What I find very interesting about that is that in another part of the country's history, something else was going on in the late 1800s. Something called the cathedral movement. Churches in general, and Episcopal churches in particular, started to build great, big cathedral buildings. Prior to this, the Episcopal Church didn't really have cathedrals. Their bishops were simply rectors of other churches. But they wanted to have these big, grand cathedrals because they were emulating England. The more British we became, the better we were. That was the thinking. And so they would make these cathedrals big and beautiful. And the ones who were funding it were the very rich and powerful folks, financially, politically, what have you, in the country. They were all Episcopalians. There's a book I've recommended a couple of times. It's out of print now. It's called The Power of Their Glory. And it talks about the Episcopal Church. The Episcopal Church, which never had, in its country's history, the Episcopal Church never had more than 5% of the population as Episcopalians, even in its heyday. Never more than 5%. However, it always had between 75 and 85% government, Fortune 500 companies, business, prep schools, colleges, organizations. That's where the power of their glory resided. And these folks were in the pews of the cathedrals that they built. Ironically, they were also the ones who were trying to get rid of the unions. So you had these things side by side. On Sunday, creating grand wonders for God. And on Monday, hurting the very workers that helped build their wealth. I love history. It gives us such incredible lessons. It holds in relief what we say we believe and how we act it out. How we are hearers of the word and whether or not we are doers of the word, as James would say. The trap that the Pharisees got into, and the trap that I can certainly get into, and perhaps you can as well, is I decide for the others what they should be doing. You know, when stewardship comes around, they say the only thing two Episcopalians can agree on is what the third one should be giving. It's always always easy to figure out what someone else's faults and pitfalls are. When we look in the mirror to look at ourselves, we're the only ones that we really have responsibility to change. The person that we see in the is our. I also want to tell you a story, again, where I am the villain. Here's the story. I've talked to you about my doctor before. We have this love-hate relationship. He loves me, I hate him. He always tells me things that I don't want to do. I've got diabetes. I have 2 diabetes. And he's been long telling me, I need to do this, I need to do this, and I need to do this, especially around dietary type things. And I tell him I don't want to do that. July 4th is coming. Can you see me passing by barbecue and mac and cheese? It's not going to happen. This gentle man got very upset with me. And finally, he just said, do it, don't do it. It's your life. My first thought was, you're not supposed to talk to me like that. The next thought was, well, maybe you need to, because I certainly didn't hear it otherwise. And I was a little offended by that. So on my way out to the parking lot, I think, you know what? Maybe he's right. I'll give him 3 months. I'll do it his way for 3 months. I'm now finishing the 2nd month of those 3 months. Gotta tell you, the guy knows what he's talking about. I've lost weight. My numbers are down. I feel great. And I hate that he's right. I'm giving him 1 more month, and then we'll figure it out. He says, use the word moderation. And I say, I don't know that word. For me, it's all or nothing. That's how my brain works. Heard the phrase, less is more? No. More is more. A new teaching, a new learning. Moderation, who knew? Do it, don't. My health requires that kind of. All of our health, physical, mental, spiritual health, requires that every day. We can be pastoral, we can be gentle, we can try to persuade. But at the end of the day, it's do it, don't do it. It's up to you. It's a hard lesson. Sometimes we try to say it nice, but sometimes nice doesn't work. Jesus tried it nice with the Pharisees. But I can kind of see him saying, do it, don't do it. It's up to you. The purpose of our religion, the purpose of our faith and our worship is not to prove the worth of someone. We already know what that is. As children of God, we are worth more than many sparrows. We are worth already. We don't have to prove that. But our job in our religion is not to fix other people. It's to fix ourselves. Our worship here is to be inspiring, not entertaining. Our communion, certainly not nourishing, but it's supposed to be transformative. To take that which we do here and bring it out there. Do the good that we can do. As James puts it, visit the widow, to care for the orphan, take care of the poor. This is our job, our duty. Not necessarily for them, but for us. I'm going to end with this little story. There's an old cartoon where the minister is holding a no nukes sign outside the White House. And the caption is, there's a couple of captions. One is where he's being told, you know you're not going to change this. Why are you doing this? says, I'm doing this because I don't want them to change me. Our work in our worship, to hold on to that love of God, hold on to that grace, that sense of